This tune is so freaking tight. God dang, guys. Okay guys, Quadcopter here. This is going to be a playlist tutorial and videos series on the $300 2024 DJI digital build. This build is going to be, as stated, it's going to be a 9-inch quad that's with an indestructible frame. We're going to do all the parts that we're using, and we're going to show you, I'm going to show you how I set up my quads and how I tune them. So it's going to be a kind of bypassing the build, but just a parts list and what I've done, and going into detail on how I set up each quad and how I basement PID tune my quad, so that all of you can do the same and PID your quads or PID tune your quads and not have to ask me or anybody for various PIDs and what they're doing on their rigs, because it'll work for everything that you do, buy, or are interested in. Even if it's a garbage drone that performs poorly, you'll be able to at least get it in the air, running smooth, cool motors, and performing well where you can point and shoot and pretty much go anywhere. All right, so let's begin. Hope you enjoy. Take care. All right, guys, Quadcopter here. We are back with the $300 9-inch and 8-inch 8S budget build for around $300 or less or more, depending on how you want to build this quad. We're just going to go over the parts again. This one is a little bit upgraded because I have a T-Motor 60 amp ESC, but you can use, and I do recommend, because of my other quad, I am using the budget. I'm using the budget Hack RC 50 amp ESC running on 8S. And I do that all day, and I don't know if you saw one of the videos, or I'm flying around the ATV guys, the side-by-sides in the Rockahula. That's what I used, all right? So I was using that all day. I've been using it for almost every day, and no problem. So you're gonna use that ESC is $31. This GEMQ 8S is actual 8S flight controller is $22, and I can formal code everything. And I guess I'll add that other video too. It's gonna be a long one. This first part one-ish is gonna be kind of long on how I actually set up my quads, how I actually laid out the ESCs for this one, because I'm going from a 20 by 20 to a 30 by 30. You can listen to that part if you should choose to do that, but you don't have to. You won't have to if you use the Hack RC. It'll be fine. You won't have to do that because it's already a 30 by 30, and the GEMQ is also 30 by 30, and the build and that combo is only $60. All right, so we got everything together. These motors are 3110 Surpass Hobby motors, and a lot of you might be saying, well, that sounds like some cheap motors. Yeah, well, maybe they are, you know, but they use them a lot. This company's been around for a long time, very popular with RC car world and boats, so they've been around, they know their stuff, and you can get it dirt cheap. I got the motors for $59 shipped at AliExpress. All right, so the motors are $59 shipped at AliExpress. You can actually get the Wasp Link from AliExpress for anywhere from 110 to 120. And you can actually you can find the Caddx Vista, the Nebula Pro Vista kit for close to $125, all on AliExpress. Most of this quad, except for the frame, you can get everything on AliExpress and keep the prices well within $300, all right? And for a complete DJI build, that's pretty darn remarkable. I don't think there's anybody out there that's doing that. And this frame, as I've seen, if you've seen any other videos, it is freaking indestructible, in my opinion, compared to anything else out there. AMAX NO Shop has the best durable frames and quality frames for the price that you could possibly get. And I'm going to show you guys, if you ask me later on, you can watch one of my past videos and look at the comments there on how to do it, but you can get this frame, this 9-inch for $64 still, even though the promo code is gone, or you can get the 10-inch. No, you can get this one for $51, and you can get the 10-inch for $64. You can either contact me directly on my username and ask me, and we'll respond there, or you can look at the last video that I did, and in the comments with Crispy, we're talking about exactly what we did and how we did it. But I'm not going to go ahead and say out loud everything that I did, because I did last time, and the code that used to work to get the cheap price is now gone. It's defunct. And this method is great. That's all I'm going to say. You'll be able to get it for that price, and right now it's probably going to work in perpetuity unless I say something stupid and keep promoting it out loud. So we're not going to do that. But now I'm going to turn it on. We're going to turn on 8S. That's what you want to see. This is the 8S, and it's nothing up my sleeves, all right? So this is 2 4S packs in series, all right? So we're going to plug it in just so you can see that it does work. Okay, so plug in. You should hear that nice pop. All 3 tones. And motor's on. So we are good. Okay, so now we know that it works on 8S, but we're gonna go ahead and basement PID tune this, okay? The second part of this video, which it's a little bit longer than most, but the second part of this video, the same one, I'm gonna show you my setup that I use for each of my quads to run them on both 6S and 8S. And after that, the video after that, we'll go into actually doing basement PID tuning, where I do it inside of my house, in my bedroom, and turn on these big monster props, 8-inch and a 9-inch, to tune my quads in my bedroom. So there's some people out there that just crack me up like, oh my God, I can't believe you turn on your quads inside of your house. You hurt me just looking at it. It's so unsafe. If you're this far into making your own quads and doing this stuff, guys, you know, yeah, don't even worry about it. I'm following Randy White's basement PID tuning, and we'll talk about how to download his free program, the free software, because now he does have a paid version. But we're just going to do this, and we just wanted enough to be able to fly smooth with warm to cool motors, just running smooth and being able to point and shoot to where you want to go. That's enough for me. I don't need it to be so darn overly tuned that if I change my props or I have something else on my quad that I shouldn't have, that I have a flyaway. I don't want it that tight of a tune. It's going to be good enough where it's going to be tight for you and I, and we're going to be able to do exactly what we want to do at all times. All right, guys, so stay tuned for the other part of the video where we go over how we set up the quad, setting up the $300 budget 8S quad. All right, guys, see you then. Oh, guys, this is so frustrating. I did a whole video on, that's like a 30-minute video on how I set up my quads for the basement PID tuning and running on 8S. Only to find out that only half the screen was recording. So we're going to go through this all again. I'm going to try to do a little bit faster, so bear with me. If I'm going too fast, just go ahead and pause the video and yeah, take notes from there. Just pause the video, do what you have to do. All right, so we're going to go through each tab on how I set up this quad. It's a $300 quad. We're going to use the DJI Vista unit, and yeah, it's going to be pretty cool, I think, and helping you guys set up your own quads, all of your quads especially, at a budget price, and not even have to worry about PID tuning because you're going to do it on your own. All right, so anyway, we're going to setup tab first, the ports tab first. However, have everything set up. You're going to have of your choice, the way you'd like to set up. Whatever your UARTs are, you're going to have your serial for whatever UART you chose. Mine is on 1 here. This is a demo chip that I'm showing, so it's going to kind of freak out after every once in a while. I'm going to have to unplug it and plug it back in. UART 2. Say if you want this where you have your DJI Air unit, O3 unit, or Vista, you're going to want to click the MSP here, and the drop down display, if you have it on 4.5, Beta 4.4, 4.5, you're going to want to choose MSP plus display port, and that will be able to get us OSD. But wait, there's more. You won't be able to get it OSD until we assign it in the CLI. And let's see here, we have nothing here on this board, this ship, but let's see, UART 6, we do have, for this one, GPS. So I have the GPS enabled, and it's on 5760, so you're going to save and reboot. And you'll go into your configuration tab. And things I would change here, if you even have a barometer, I would disable that. If you have magnetometer, definitely disable that, because the GPS rescue is going to be kind of wonkus when you try to find your way home. You can slam into a side of a mountain like I had before. So just disable the magnetometer and the barometer if you have that on board. Don't even mess with it. By default, RX lost and RX set will be off. I like to have them on because when I use my beeper, the motors will sound, and in case I lose the quad and the battery's still connected, I'll be able to find it that way. Everything else here is on default. It's already checked for you. You don't have to worry about that. Now we're going to be running this one on 6S and 8S, and we want to be able to switch our PID tuning profiles from 1, 2, 3, 4 automatically depending on what battery that we plug in. So in our case, profile 1 is going to be 6S, profile 2 is going to be our 8S, profile 3, 4S, profile 4 will be 5S. And the reason that we're going to assign them that way is because when we plug in our quad, we're going to reduce the motor output for an 8S quad, and we want to make sure when we put it to 8S that it is not staying on profile 1 and 6S, because you put that 8S battery on and the motor is going at full bore, you're going to burn out the motor. So just, you'll understand in a minute, but yeah, we're going to be able to switch our profiles automatically when we plug in the batteries. Receivers, once we get the once you choose whatever serial port tab you are, this is by default, it's going to be set. It's going to be set for serial and crossfire, and you're going to be able to use your crossfire or your ELRS, and everything else should work by default. Sometimes you'll have to change the ATR depending on how your receiver or your transmitter is. You just have to switch those letters around till you find the right mix, and then make sure that when you move the sticks around in your quad, when you're set up, that the quad, this little icon, is going in the right direction, you know, spinning around in the right direction. My modes tab, our modes tab, we're going to want to make sure that when we're assigning the your switches, if you've never really done this before, but I'm sure you have, if you're watching this video, you've already done it many times, so we're building a big quad, so you should know how. But if you don't, go ahead and choose the add a range, and I set everything at start to auto. And the reason I choose auto is because when I choose auto and pick any of the switches on my transmitter, it will go ahead and use that. So if it's switch 2 with auxiliary 2, it'll switch to auxiliary 2 automatically, but you need to start up with auto in each tab. Angle mode, make sure you have that set, because when we base for PID tune everything, the angle mode is going to be essential, because that's how we're going to do all of our PID tuning, which is going to be done in my bedroom with an 8-inch propellers and 9-inch propellers. So if you guys or girls or Nancy's out there saying, oh, don't turn on that quad in your house, you're hurting me while I look at YouTube and I'm looking at your quad, you're hurting me. This is how I base and PID tune stuff. I use Randy White's base and PID tuning method. Completely safe. As a matter of fact, I think it's more safe to do it in your house, in your bedroom, than doing it outside, outdoors, where you can have a flyaway. I've had many flyaways inside of my house, hits my roof, drops back down, boom, I still have my quad and people aren't hurt. Okay, so long story short, just make sure that you have angle mode enabled, because that's what we're going to be using. And depending on how you want to do things, I also have a GPS rescue switch on, so that I can test that out in the field. If you may not have GPS, you may not even need to care about that, but I do. Beeper, I also have that assigned so that my motors make the beeping sound when I lose a quad and need to find it. The battery's still connected. Let's see what else. Flip over and crash, I also have that assigned. I don't use it often on these big quads because these props are so expensive. Once you use it, that's it. Those props are pretty much going to be obliterated. So this is like a last resort for me to use, just so I can find my quad wherever it is. That's about it. And yeah, I don't use anything else on that. Your GPS, make sure that if you're using an M10 chip, that you have the use Galileo marked and U blocks. Okay, so that's going to get you the most satellites, because you're going to get GPS, which is American, and Galileo, which is European. You're going to get more options, more satellites to use. So you definitely want that clicked, right? Motors tab. I like to do everything in reverse, motor spinning out in reverse. I also do like to use BL Heli 32, because I kind of think it's important, and I think UAV Futures also recommends that if you have a bigger quad with big motors like this, because we're using the 3110 and 2812s motors, so you really need to turn your PWM frequency down, if you can, lower than 24 megahertz or kilohertz, because that's the same frequency as a DJI O3 air unit, if you should use that. And the air unit has the gyros inside of the head of the camera, so when you're using that and you have your PWM frequency set at 24, the same as the air unit, you're going to have some problems, right? Your video is going to look really bad. But in my case, I'm using the Vista unit on this one, so I'm not really going to be too concerned about that right now. But you should, for the bigger motors, try to bring it down to 20 megahertz PWM frequency of 20 or 16. Okay, just remember that, 20 or 16. That's really where you want to be. That'll be a sweet spot to keep your motors running a little bit cooler and more cinematic while you're flying, if you should so choose. But if you're going to use Betaflight 4.5, first I would recommend using the default Betaflight that it comes with, because the default is not 4.5. It's going to be something lower than that, where you still have Betaflight pass-through, where you can actually connect to BL-Heli32 and change your settings to PWM frequencies to whatever you desire. And then after you do that and you have your motors in the right direction, I would then come here and then I would update my firmware to Betaflight 4.5. That's up to you though. All right, since we're doing basic PID tuning, we're going to want to use bidirectional D-shot. And if you're going to do that, make sure that you count the motor poles on the number of magnets on your motor, because some motors will have more or less than others. So make sure that that motor count is exactly what's on the bell of your motor. Okay, so do that, please. Another thing, like I said, you can actually change the motor direction if you can't get to BL-Heli32 and you don't really care about changing your PWM frequency. Go ahead and do it right here. Okay, just change your motor direction and you can change it. Boom. And then make sure you don't have your props on, understand the wrist, and just go ahead and move that master slider and make sure that the motor is spinning in the right direction. Okay. OSD, self-explanatory. This is where this chip locks up, so I have to unplug it and put it back in. Definitely not using this one for any other builds. So black box, we're going to be using that often, and if you have a chip or if you have a flight controller that does not have black box, or they don't have that, don't get it, because that's what we need. We need to be able to see the motor noise, the frame noise while we're doing these basement PID tunes. So you can click the onboard flash like I did for my Darwin FPV trash ESC and flight controller, and there was no onboard black box. It just was a very faulty chip, a lot of issues. Don't recommend it. Anyway, now that we've done that, we're going to go into the CLI and make the adjustments first with the OSD so that we can see the OSD on board. All right, so we've already gone back. We'll just go back here real quick. Our ports tab, go ahead and connect please, thank you. Our ports tab, we have our BTX and MSTP display port, but you won't be able to see your OSD unless you go down into your CLSI or CLI and program it. So it's going to be, let me see if I can remember, set OSD underscore display port device, okay, equals, and you want to choose MSP. Okay, so MSP, boom. And now if you have your VTX connected properly, you're going to be able to see your OSD in your goggles. So now you're set with that. Now we want to make sure that we've changed that we do change and set our profiles correctly, so that when we plug in a 4S battery, it goes to 4S profile. We check it a 5S, 5S, 6S, and 8S EDS, because we don't want to blow out our ESC or our motors. Because you have everything on full power on 8S, guess what? It's going to be bad news all day. So profile 0 is actually profile 1, so we're going to go profile 0. Boom, now we're set for profile 0, and we're going to set, let me see, MSP, no, set output. Actually, we're going to set cell count, motor cell count. Let's see, cell count someplace. Let me see, cell. Okay, there we go. Set auto profile cell count. I think I love how that does the auto suggestion for you. Auto cell count for this one, for profile 0, which is profile 1, is going to be, for us, in this case, 6S. Okay, profile 1, which is actually profile 2, we're going to want that to be 8S, so we're going to set auto, oh not that, set auto, can I spell? Auto profile cell count equals, we want this one to be 8. Alright, enter and save, and then profile 1, 2, 2, which is 3, we're going to want that 4S, so we're going to be set, we're going to say set auto profile cell count equals 0 to 8, we want 4S. Boom. Oh, and I did a little boo-boo, we're going to go back to that because we need to change our motor output. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and do that right now. We're going to go back into our 8S profile, which is profile 2, so profile 1, which is actually profile 2, we're going to set, again, auto profile cell count equals 8, but for this one we want to reduce our motor output. We're using the 2812s or using the or you're using the 3110s, which is what we're using on this one, you're going to want to reduce the motor output to whatever kV that you desire to use, okay? And the formula for that, found it from Dreamman's video, or any videos that go from 6S to 4S. For 8S, we're going to want to go 900 kV to 960 kV max. We're using the 8-inch props, okay? So the formula for that, because these motors that I have a natural kV listed as 1280, so I want 960 kV for this one. So 960 divided by what's on my motor, what reads as 1280, equals 75%. So I want to reduce my old motor output to 75% instead of 100, so we don't burn out the motor. So set motor, what is this? Set motor profile, set motor, come on, something, motor output limit. There we go. So we want to set our motor output limit to equal from 1 to 100%. I want 75. Okay, boom. Now we just go back and keep going. Profile 1, 2, 2, which is profile 3, is going to be 4S. So set auto profile cell count equals 4 is what we're going to want, equals 4. Boom. And then lastly, we're going to do profile 3, which is profile 4, and we're going to put this one at 5S. So set auto profile cell count equals 5. Boom. And then after that, make sure it's critical, hit save, and it'll reboot. Boom. Alright, so I'm going to disconnect this flight controller, and what I'm doing right now is I'm plugging in the actual GEMQ 8S flight controller that we're using for this cheap $300 build. And let it connect. So this is the actual quad that I've plugged in that we're using, and we're going to go into our PID tuning tab and make sure that our profiles are set. So profile 1 in my case is going to be 6S, profile 2 is going to be 8S, profile 3 is going to be 4S, and profile 4 is going to be 5S. I don't have a 5S battery on me, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it all the way to profile 4 and then plug in first a 4S battery to make sure that it switches to the right channels, the right profiles. So it should be profile 3 in a second. Boom, yes it is. Profile 3 is 4 cell. Alright, so now I'm going to plug in, I have in my hand a 6-cell battery that's going to be plugged in and should go to profile 1. Let's see. Profile 1, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, okay. Now you hear a slight pop. We're going to go profile 2 for 8S. Ooh, that capacity, love that. And boom, there you go. So everything is set up now, guys. We're set up for our next video. We're going to go ahead and basement PID tune this, crossing our fingers that we do everything right, and then over the weekend we'll take it out to the park and fly it. But this is going to be part 1. I'm showing you all the parts that we used already in one of the videos that I've done, and just to show you that this thing is up and running, I will probably show you that it turns on and turns on with 8S and 6S and doesn't explode. Probably will already have seen that before you got to this point in the video anyway. So enjoy, guys. Stay tuned for more. We're going to basement PID tune sometime this week when I have more time. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this series of the budget $300 macro 9-inch quad on 8S digital DJI. It challenges any other drone of this size to be this indestructible and to fly this well. And so that you can learn how to PID tune any quad yourself without having to ask me for what my PID setups are, what I'm doing. For the love of, you know what, do it on your own, because you're gonna love the way you're gonna love your quads even more when you do it on your own. Okay? Alright guys, that's the goal. God bless. Have a great week, and we will continue on later. Sky2 Quaddy, sign out. Okay guys, something I forgot to mention, how to set up your GPS rescue tab, the Failsafe tab, okay? You're going to want to make sure, because by default it comes in on just drop, but we're going to want our GPS rescue to work, right? Because that's the whole point of, if we're going to have a big quad and we're using GPS, we want to fly this bad boy long range, and I do prefer this setup over even my O3 air unit for long range, because some reason that Goggles V2 is giving me more horsepower, more freaking strength, long range than my O3 air unit, and they don't play fair together. And quite frankly, the DJI V2 goggles outpowers my DJI O3 goggles. It knocks us out of the sky reduces our megabits down to 17 when we're at 50. It's just no good, no bueno. So anyway, I don't even mess with any of these settings because they work well. But if I'm PID tuning in my house, or if I'm flying locally and I don't want to have to wait for satellites, then I will go ahead and I will allow arming without satellites. Okay, so what I will do is, if I decide to fly immediately, I can do so if I want, or if I do wait for the 8 satellite minimum, then my GPS rescue switch will still work at long range. If say I start getting a little bit of breakup and I want to get back and I don't trust that I think it's going to go out, then I can flip that switch and I'm good. But the downside of that is the switch won't work if you have this clicked and you actually do a fail safe. You lose your RX connection. As it says here, if I can bring it back up, not recommended, permits arming without home point, but the quad will disarm and crash with true RX loss. That is so darn important right there, and I just learned that recently when I flew out in Mexico in the huge mountains. Lost the quad twice because of RX loss, and even though I armed it, used a GPS rescue, it just dropped and I broke the quad. Okay, so if you're doing long range, I would have this unclicked every time before you even go out, and just wait for those 8 satellites. It might take a little time, but it's well worth it, because when you have an actual fail-safe, your quad's going to find itself back home. It's going to react faster than you can flick that switch. All right, so that's what I wanted in this part of the video. I forgot to add it to the first part, and yeah, basic PID tuning is next. All right, guys, take care.